Uh-oh. Okay, we're on.
There we are.
All right. So welcome, everybody. Welcome to FiberArtNow FANfare webinar series. We're very excited to be using this media opportunity to interview artists, fiber artists, authors, and people, families or businesses in the fiber industry. So we're building up some content on our website, even though the core of what we do is our quarterly magazine. We hope you take an opportunity to check out our magazine, and but also go to our website. We have so much on there, lots of content. We have our blogs. We have information with past articles. We have a really wonderful events calendar. I wanted to remind anybody who signs on to go look at the events calendar. If you've got a gallery exhibit or a workshop, it's really easy to add that on. And people use that to go, let's say I'm going to go to Dallas next week. I want to see what kind of fiber events are happening. And you just type in that Dallas, and all the events that people have put in pop up with a nice Google map. So please use all our resources and on our website. I also want to say, if you are on Facebook, follow us on Facebook or tag us on Twitter. Look at our amazing Pinterest board. We've got some great content there. If you are an Instagram fiend, like so many people are these days, make sure you tag FiberArtNow. It gives us a chance to look at what work you're all doing. So that's my plug for FiberArtNow. And today, you're going to see the three of us down below here, and here I'm going to switch myself on. This is kind of an interesting model of doing videos, and today we are really excited, and I'm very grateful for Amanda McCavour to take time out of her insanely busy schedule and spend I don't know, half hour, 40 minutes to chat with us. So, and then the person you're going to see in the middle there is my assistant, Victoria, and it's her job to anticipate what serendipitous conversation we get into and get some of Amanda's images up on the website. So this is not a fancy, well-edited event. We just are working from our heart on this. So, all right. So, Amanda, let's see. We got you up. All right. Welcome, welcome. How are you?
Thank you. I'm very good. Thanks for having me.
Great. All right. I
see.
Good
to be invited. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. I know you're taking. You've got. I know. While we were on pause there for a little bit, you were packing away because I know you're launching off. Where are you going after we sign off today?
I'm going to go pick up my rental car and drive to Gatineau, Quebec for a solo exhibition. So this week will be install for that. So it's going to be a busy week. Yeah.
That's exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
got
great.
A lot of exhibitions, and I want to get into that. I have my list of questions here. So
Me too.
Let that evolve. So first of all, I want to just talk. You've got your MFA in Fiber and Material Studies from the Tyler School of Art at Temple in Pennsylvania, and you did your undergraduate work where?
I did my undergraduate at York University in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. So while I was there, I concentrated mostly on drawing and printmaking, and then I did some installation. And it was really through drawing that I came to fiber. So I didn't study fiber formally before my MFA.
Really? Okay. Yeah. So it just kind of evolved?
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking about, we had this class where we were talking about line, or drawing as line, so we're thinking about it in this kind of expanded way, like any kind of practice that involved line was considered drawing. So I started to think about thread and started to think like, oh, that's interesting line.
Yeah, it is.
It's so like tactile, and it's sculptural, but it's also quite flat because it's so slight. So I was thinking about that, and then I thought, oh, it would be really cool to make something that existed only out of thread. So that's kind of my start with solvy and embroidery. So it was, you know, kind of from this perspective of drawing.
So what made you choose, how did you decide to get an MFA, and then how did you choose where you're going to get your MFA?
Well, the process of like even deciding to do my MFA was a difficult one. It was something that always wanted to do because I kind of came from this background of drawing, and I really wanted to learn more about fiber processes because my work had kind of evolved into that sphere. So I had been thinking about it for a number of years. I graduated from my undergrad in 2007 and ended up taking a number of years just to build my CV and do residencies and really just work outside of academia. But I kind of felt like I was in a bit of a rut, and I also felt like now was the time to do it. I started my MFA, it would have been 2012.
And how did you choose your school?
Well, I was looking at schools in Canada because obviously I was based in Toronto, Ontario at the time. But then I got some advice from mentors. I was talking to Patrick McCauley from Harbourfront Centre, which is a cultural institution here, and he gave me some advice. He did his MFA in the States and said that his program was really studio-based, so that's something that really appealed to me. I really wanted to spend time in the studio working through things like materially and do research and do reading, but really invest that time in the space of the studio. So really the programs I was looking to in the States were focusing on the studio and focusing on material practice. So yeah, I looked into a bunch of them, and Tyler was great because they had this kind of open format. A lot of the work that was coming out of the school, experimental, and like on the border of fiber and painting or fiber and sculpture, and those kind of borders are things that I'm interested in. So it seemed like a good fit.
Yeah, I think I'm going to try to get your some of your installation work when you were. Why don't you tell us about this?
Yeah, so this is my thesis show at Tyler. So really what happened while I was in school is they challenged me to work in a different way. So when I came to school, I was doing a lot of embroidered installations with Solvay, and it's a process I'm so in love with. But they were thinking, this is the best time to try something new. And so they kind of told me that I shouldn't sew on the sewing machine, that I should try to have creative problems where I don't necessarily would know what the outcome will be, where I can kind of experiment a bit more. So really my MFA started to become this like kind of thoughts about the studio as like laboratory and as like testing site. And I started to become really interested in the process of moving through a creative problem or moving through material exploration, which was very different from what I was doing. What
materials are we seeing up here right now?
So I chose things that were really easy to find. So like a bunch of this is paper. There's some poured glue. I was using a lot of straws and toothpicks. You can kind of like connect them together. It was kind of finding these like modes of creating that were really like kind of hands-on, and the materials were really readily available. So lots of glue, lots of plaster, sand, paper, and just kind of trying to, I started to think about replicating like systems in nature. And then I also thought a lot about walking when I was making the work.
Walking?
Yeah, like I was reading this book by Rebecca Solnit called Wanderlust, and she was talking about these different modes of walking that we have. And in contemporary culture, we go from like point A to point B, like we have a goal. And so I started to think about that in my art making process. I often have this goal, and I just go from point A to point B. But there's other modes of walking, and they kind of talked about it as more like wandering. So I started to think about kind of wandering through my art practice rather than just going from like an idea to an outcome. So kind of unpacking that.
oops, we have a glitch here. We're blocked. Do you have, can you hear me?
I could hear you.
Okay. Are you there, Amanda? Let's see if we can click her back in. That's me. Uh-oh. She might have to go out and go back in again. All right. Well, while we're waiting, oh, when do we have her back? While we're waiting to get Amanda back.
Sorry, Cami, I'm having technical difficulties. There we go.
Good. Okay, I'm going to give it a try again. Okay.
Okay, we're back.
Awesome. Awesome. No problem. That's good. I mean, you got me all excited about, you know, I know before we came on, we were talking, or yesterday maybe, about doing book reviews. I know you're reviewing Leanne Prain's book, Strange Materials, which I reviewed, and we interviewed Leanne, and it's just, we start getting excited, but we were talking about maybe doing an online book club of some sort, and Wanderlust sounds like a really interesting book to put on the discussion table. We'll have to add that to our schedules of things to do.
Yeah, it sort of came out of left field, but it's like if you can be open to, like, it was so interesting just having that book, and like a professor recommended it to me, but it sort of applied in this way that I didn't expect. So it was a really interesting thing to like let that book kind of settle. It was really only like a couple months after I read it that I was like, oh, you can really
right, you can really get that. That's very good. Okay, so it's on my book list to read, and we'll get back sometime and discuss that. I see your beautiful studio space behind you. Yeah. You want to talk about your workspace a little bit?
Sure. So I've worked through like in a number of different places. So I've worked in a shared studio at a place called Harborfront Center doing residency there. So I shared with 6 other girls. So that was great for kind of community building and skill building, and you know, it was a great time. And then I've worked doing residencies and have kind of had these separate studio spaces in a variety of buildings. But now I'm working from home, my home apartment. And I have this little corner, and it's full of tables, and I've got my pegboard over here, and then some shelving here. And then my kitchen is not too far away, so I can get to you whenever I want to. But it works perfectly for me. You know, it's nice to be at home and to, you know, if I have a really busy day, I can still make time to work in the studio. I don't have to like go somewhere else. And then on a really practical level, it's great to like keep costs down, because I think that, you know, saving that money just allows me more time to make. So.
That's so good. Yeah. And so I see 2 sewing machines. You want to talk about your tool of the trade there?
Yeah, so I use Singer sewing machines, like older Singer machines, and they're great because they're full of metal parts, not like the newer machines. Mm-hmm. But I have like 6 or 7 machines, because there's been this phenomenon of machines breaking right before a deadline. So I've kind of collected them. I have my favorites, but I have a few machines, and we were kind of talking about how I view these machines. You know, I've got backup, and I don't have a really like personal, close relationship with my sewing machine. I think other people might, but I kind of view it as this tool that sometimes I fight with, and I'm trying to make it do things it doesn't want to do, and you know, it's I never feel at one with my sewing machine, but I that might be specific to me.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's
I think we've all fought with a sewing machine more than we'd like to admit.
Yeah.
And, when there's a deadline looming, the thread breaks more for some reason.
Yeah, it's just the way. But yeah, I am really grateful for these machines. They allow me to do a lot more like larger installations.
Well, so tell us about the process then. Are you, I'm probably jumping ahead on questions, but are you using Sketchbook or to get to maybe
yeah, I thought that question was...
Look at some of the images, Victoria. We can get some more pictures of her work up.
Yeah, so I do have a sketchbook, but my sketchbook is like kind of a lot of like drawings of things that could be. I do like a little bit of like doodling, but I also have like a book of just lists, like lists of things to apply to, lists of ideas, and I have an agenda that I write those in so I can keep track of them day by day. But I do a lot of drawing. Not all of it is in a sketchbook, but all of the pieces that we're going to see as Victoria's like scrolls down are they all have existed as drawings on paper before they've become thread drawings. So I moved from small sketches in my sketchbook to life-size drawings on paper, and then I translate those drawings onto Solvay and then sew into those. So there's like tracing and like multiple drawings that happen before it even gets onto the Solvay.
Someone in the there's lots of questions coming in the chat room here, and I'll try to get them all and incorporate them in. But the one that's most relevant right now is, what size of Solvay do you use, and where do you get it?
I've been ordering from uncommonthread.com, but if you look on the Solvay website, you'll be able to locate distributors wherever you are. So right now I'm in Canada, so there's a couple of places close to me that I can order it from. And I get the Solvay on bolts because I use so much of it. It's a great material. It dissolves at not a super high temperature, so you can keep the water really just kind of warm. And as soon as the water touches it, it dissolves. So you don't need to spend a lot of time like working with the dissolving process. And what I do is like a lot of the pieces are much bigger than the dimensions of the Solvay, but what's great about it is you can kind of patch it together and create really big surfaces to work on. So you just kind of stitch it, or you can use they also sell glue, like a spray adhesive that can attach the Solvay together. And there's a couple types of Solvay. So there's the Fabry Solvay. It looks more like an interfacing, and it has kind of a give to it. And I love that one because it doesn't get brittle. It just, it's perfect. So I would highly recommend experimenting with it.
Experimenting with that. Yeah, we've got, I don't know, do you want to talk about your process here a little bit?
Sure. So what I do is I sew into the Solvay, and basically what I'm doing is creating a network of intersecting threads. And I basically build from light to dark, so I think of it kind of as a drawing process where I'm sort of cross-hatching or like creating textures, and then I dissolve the base. So a lot of the pieces I've worked on in the past have been kind of documents of my living spaces, or kind of I've created a thread garden. And I've also been making these kind of abstracted floral forms. So you can see right now there's images of the garden.
Those are so much fun to see. I would love to see that in person. It just really is exciting. Sally online here is asking, how do you maintain the stiffness of your designs?
I've been using methocellulose as a starch. It's usually made for book binding, or used as a book binding material, but it's acid-free, and you can mix it at different concentrations. So you can make it really thick, or you can water it down a fair bit and dip it a bunch of times. But I really enjoy the flatness of these because I think of them as drawings. But it also helps with shaping, like if you're interested in shaping embroideries, which is something that I've been working on for the show that's coming up this week. The methocellulose really has, it has some strength to it, and it can be washed away after. So if you decide you don't want it to be stiff anymore, you can wash it out.
So I love how you get that. It's three-dimensional.
Yeah.
But it's flat. And how do you get your ideas for these, like this setting here? What brought you this room with the dog and the framed the home away from home, I should say it's called.
Right. Yeah. So it's interesting how it kind of feel like my ideas kind of go in this like circle sometimes, where you have this thing that you're working on, but then you jump to something else and you work on that for a little bit. But this piece is part of a continuum for sure, because I was working in my undergrad. I was working a lot with like images of my body. I thought there was something really interesting about fiber and its relationship to the body. So I was doing a lot of hands and like images of myself. And then I was asked to work on a piece for an exhibition, or propose a piece for an exhibition at Harborfront Center, and they were talking a lot about scale. So I thought like, oh, I'll make an environment for my body, and I was also thinking about the spaces that my body occupies.
Nice.
So yeah, so that's kind of where those pieces came from. They came from like a feeling that I had about these spaces I cared a lot about, which were my rental apartments, but they were temporary and shifting.
I love seeing your shoes kicked off over there, and the backpack on the side. It is. Now I understand. That's really exciting to hear how you were, just including your own environment and where you feel comfortable.
Yeah. There's like a connection I feel to those spaces. So.
Someone is asking, where do you get the cellulose?
There's it at a local art supply store here, but I think I forget the brand name. I can send it.Maybe we can. I'll look for it and then post
or you
it
can
to
Google. Sally, you can Google cellulose. I'm glad you spelled it, because I wasn't even sure there how to spell that word. But,
methylcellulose. Yeah, and I think like if you're in the States, like Blick Art Supply Store probably has it. I think any art supply store that sells bookbinding supplies should have it.
So back to your studio, do you work in the studio every day, or does it go in waves? I know you travel a lot with all your exhibits and workshops.
Yeah, so it's been a little bit of everything lately. So I think ideally you have this kind of routine. But in my experience, it's like if I can get into the studio like 6 days a week, like even
great.
if it's for a little bit, that's kind of the best. And but I don't really have a routine, because I have to work around, like there's shows, and then sometimes there's these things like writing proposals, which that takes time, and then there's also like I've been working part-time, so working. So yeah, my studio kind of
work thing gets in the way, doesn't it?
Yeah. But the funny thing is that I had a period of time where I got a grant, and I was able to just spend like 3 months working in my studio, and I thought it would be the best thing. Like I thought it would be the greatest, but it actually turned out to be like a little bit too much of studio time and not enough like outside input. So it's like there's always a balance, and I think for me like it's really like important for me to like get out and get talking to people and to like see shows. And I've been really fortunate. I work at an art gallery part-time, so
that's nice.
So that's a nice interaction. Yeah.
Well, we have some questions about residencies, and how do you pick which ones you want, and share your advice and strategies on getting residencies.
Sure. So I have talked to a lot of people about their experience doing residencies, and sometimes it's just like they stand out to you. So the first residency I did was a 3-year residency at Harborfront Center in Toronto, and so that one kind of came to me through a professor who recommended it and said I should apply, and I said no, like I can't do that. But you just have to do it. You have to like try, and it was pretty nerve-wracking because it was the first one. But that one was like very specific because it's a 3-year residency. It was really intense. I built like a really great group of friends. I met a lot of amazing people there. But for the most part now, like the residencies I'm choosing are shorter term. just because it's like, you know, if you have something established in one city, it's hard to leave for an extended period of time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I look on, there's like a bunch of websites that have listings for residencies, and then I hear from other artists like what they've been doing. So I did a residency up in Dawson City, Yukon, which was life-changing and amazing, and it's through Odd Gallery.
Why was that so life-changing? I mean, I can't imagine even living up there. That would be life-changing.
Yeah.
In the Yukon.
Yeah.
So wonderful.
There was something about it that was like, so there's 24 hours of sunlight when I first arrived there. So there was something about the city being outside of time or being kind of like otherworldly. It was, you know, it was so removed from like any type of city life. And it was, I also had a lot of assumptions when I first, when I went there. I thought, okay, I'm going to the north. I'm going to be by myself, and I'm going to, you know, experience this kind of like alone, solitary kind of place. And it was the opposite. I like never more felt a part of a community than I did when I was there, because it's so small, and, you know, people really rely on each other, and that kind of, I think that was really, you know, it was so different from living in a large city. And yeah, I met amazing people there, and yeah, it just was awesome.
And what work evolved from that?
Well, I became really interested in this like one, it was kind of like a abandoned piece of machinery, because there's all this kind of like abandoned machinery from mining there. So I made a thread rendering of this like really large metal steam pump, and I think it's an interesting piece, but really like what I remember is not the work; it's more the place and kind of that experience. So I think, you know, sometimes you go and you make amazing things at residencies, but this one was 2 months long, and it does take a little while to get settled and to get making work at a residency. But
yeah, I can imagine that. There's so many. It sounds like a dream thing to come and do. Sometimes when I've taken workshops, I've been so excited to take a workshop with a master craftsperson, and once I'm there, my creativity just kind of goes in stop mode.
Yeah.
And I can't produce anything, but later on it does turn up in my work somehow. So you just don't know when it's going to show up.
Exactly.
What gets in the way of your creativity, and how do you move through it?
Well, I think doubt, like being kind of scared, like not knowing how it's going to turn out and worrying about investing time. And yeah, that's a big like showstopper for me. Like it's so easy to get worried about like, well, is this like, you're so hypercritical, and yeah, sometimes I have to just like shut that off. But something that really helped me with that is I was looking at John Cage's, like, I think it's 10 rules for teachers and students. It's a list that he has. And one of the things he said, and I'm going to like butcher this, but it was like, everything you do is leading you to the next thing. So you can't do you can't make the show-stopping piece. You can't skip any of those steps in between. Like, so it kind of validates everything. You know, you can't skip any of those steps. You just have to keep going. And so that kind of made me a bit more peaceful, like a bit more relaxed about, number one, making mistakes and making bad work, because it happens. Yeah,
right. You just have to keep making, huh?
Yeah, and just know that like everything you make is leading up to, like, you can't skip any of that. It's all part of it.
Yeah, part of the soup.
Yeah.
The ingredients that go into the soup pot, right?
Yeah. And then the other thing that I worry about a lot is, like, that kind of stops me in the studio is, like, miscellaneous things that I need to do around my art practice. So that's, like, Facebook or blogging or getting my website perfect or applying to, like, it's kind of yeah, it's not making, but it's so related. So what I kind of do for that is I'm like a list writer, so I'll kind of write down all the things that I need to do and kind of put it away. But I find that really hard to kind of turn off
all the promotion. I think all artists struggle with the marketing and promotion work.
Yeah.
I do want to go into that in a little bit, and I want to make sure we get some of the questions on the side chatting over here.
Sure,
when you use I guess everybody wants to know how are you hanging those pieces? How much studio space does that take up?
Yeah,
how do you
question.
know while you're in your tiny apartment how that's going to, look?
Well, I don't. So it packs up really small. I can fold everything, like tiny, tiny. But for the last room installation I made, I didn't actually, actually I had a studio space to set it up in and like work piece by piece, but for the most part it hasn't been that way. It's kind of like I get to the gallery, I have my plan, and you just like hope, you hope that it comes together, and it normally does. But they're all hanging by strings, and I've got really tall ceilings here, and like very limited floor space. So
right.
Yeah, so you just kind of like, I did make the first piece and set that up, so I kind of, there's a predictability to some of it. Yeah, so this piece we're looking at now was made at Struts Gallery as a part of a residency I did there. So what was great is I had the space.
Let me get Victoria to post, which piece was that?
It's the new living room. I made it in 2000.
Right.
Yeah,
The living room. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll get that posted. What pieces or installations seem to have gotten the strongest response from viewers or the gallery reps or?
Yeah, not this living room, but the living room I made before with the dog portraits. That one seems to be a hit. Like it's gone to so many places. It's been to Portland, it's been to the Ukraine, and it's going to go to Iceland. So for some reason it's exciting, but there's like that one has for some reason been kind of the one that stands out in people's minds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really cool. Do you always get to go with it?
No, not always.
So we were talking yesterday a little bit about the visa issues and kind of the challenges of getting work different places or getting you back and forth across the border with your work and school.
Yeah, so it is a bit of a challenge. Shipping your artwork is always, or I'm never okay with it. It's always a little bit scary. But yeah, just having like the proper documentation. When I was doing school, I had a special type of status as a student, so going across the border was a little bit easier.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you just need the proper documentation. You need letters from galleries.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, so it hasn't been too hard yet, but it's a paperwork thing, which is not fun.
That paperwork thing, right?
Yeah.
How did you initially start showing your work in galleries?
Well, I started with a really small group exhibition in Toronto at this place called the Gladstone Hotel. They do a fiber exhibition every year. So that was the first thing I applied to. So I really liked applying to group exhibitions. I thought that one was really nice. I just had one piece, and it was two hands. So it was a good starting point for me because I didn't have a body of work. I just had...
Was this the two hands that we just used?
Yes.
Oh, okay. We'll have that. Victoria.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so that piece was in the first public show that I did.
Okay, I'll try to get that again. Well, that's, that is one of your iconic pieces for some... I've seen that for so many, on Facebook and other social media, so I know it does, it really resonates with so many people. It's very beautiful.
Yeah, there's something about the quality of line in that piece. It's like, I don't know if I could ever replicate it. It's just special.
I always think of, you probably had to study art history, but Rembrandt and all his line drawings, that are just his hands, you know. That's all he did with his hands, a whole series of them. And I was so, I don't remember where it was, but I was lucky to go. I think it was up in BC, in Canada. They just had an exhibit of basically, it was almost just his hands.
Interesting.
It was a small exhibit, but it was really, I don't know, I loved it. I thought it was really interesting. Yeah. Well, so, okay, so you start, you know, how do you go about deciding where you're going to show your work? It's, you know, you look on websites, or are you hearing it from friends, or what's the...
Yeah, there's a list that comes out in Toronto, well, Canada, called Akimbo, and it's just like a listing of calls for galleries. So I look at that a lot, and I think most cities have kind of like a listing where galleries that are looking for submissions like can like spread the word. But I also look at like artists that I really admire. I look at their CVs and see where they've been showing. And then I kind of, you know, like there's a Craft Ontario here, they have a gallery, so I was looking at other places and what kind of craft galleries they have. So it's kind of, it's a little bit of research, and sometimes it's just like poking through people's CVs and kind of then looking at what the gallery and their interests might be, so kind of doing research that way. So yeah, and there's lots of resources. I mean, the College Art Association website, they've got listings, so you kind of like compile these lists of places that also have lists.
Yeah, maybe that's a somewhere on our website we can squeeze that in. That'd be a great resource for the artist. Someone in our chat room here is asking, how are those two hands mounted, or is it hanging?
Good question. So the smaller pieces are just mounted with straight pins on the wall. So I'll put the piece on the wall and then nail straight pins into the wall, and then I'll pull the piece out. So you get the shadows and you get the sense that it's fabric.
So Marcia just reminded me on the chat room over here. Yes, we have that section already, and it's our events page, which I very at the beginning spent so much time reminding everybody that they needed to apply. Yeah. So yes, if as you're talking to people, you know, they could post those things up there because it's such a great resource.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think you just like find those places that are go-to spots, and you can kind of set those deadlines for yourself. Yeah.
Okay, so I want to go back and ask. You mentioned some of your favorite artists and who's inspired. Do you have a few that you want to share that you are inspired by?
Yeah, so maybe to link back to some of the work I was doing in grad school, I was looking a lot at Sarah Z's work. And she's so interesting. She uses all these different materials, and her work kind of talks about a lot of different things like mapping, and she had an exhibition at the Fabric Workshop and Museum, and I was fortunate enough to go see that.
What was her name again?
Sarah Z, S-Z-E.
Okay. I'm taking notes.
Yeah. So she was really like an interesting person. It was so good to see her work and to see the way that she uses the objects. There's kind of this intentionality to the way she places things, and she did an artist talk at the Fabric Workshop, and she was talking a lot about different types of time. But it was just, I found her work to be like really, really interesting, and she did a lot of paper cut pieces before or like around the same time that she like moved into sculpture, and I just found that really interesting, the kind of tension between the flat and the sculptural. Something I really like.
Huh, yeah. I'm gonna look her up. Maybe I've seen it. You know,
you probably have. Yeah.
Okay, it's on my list here. And do you want to talk about your exhibits, your latest exhibition? God, look at this. You know, World of Threads. How amazing is that? What a cool organization.
Yeah, they are really great. They do these fiber art interviews that they post online. They're kind of written interviews. This show, they're so great, and they're so great to work with. So the next show will be not this year, this upcoming year, but the year after. It's a biannual show, but I'd encourage everyone to apply to that. It was really exciting to see all this different work from all these different places, and the show has really grown. Yeah, so this piece, this show was at the Living Arts Center in Mississauga, Ontario, which is my hometown. So I was really happy to, home city, I guess. But I was happy to show there, and it was great to see all this work from just all over the place. So that was really exciting.
We have picture images of the Nova Scotia Center. Craft and design. Do we have those images?
Yeah, there were a couple of those up before.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was a really great show. Yeah, that was nice because all the room installations and the garden got to exist in the same space, which is really exciting for me.
Yeah, I bet. It must be exciting to walk into a room and finally see all your work hanging.
Yeah, because it's so rare for me. Yeah, and that's a good point. You know, like a lot of this work exists in storage, kind of folded up. So for it to kind of have a site is really nice. So,
okay, what's on your design table right now?
Okay, so I pulled out some stuff. So I just finished setting up some stuff for this upcoming exhibition in Gatineau, and I wanted to show everybody my creative packing. So it's a Tupperware.
How nice to have Tupperware be your packing strategy. Yes.
So what I've been working on is these like small bloom forms that they're like little cups. Let's see if we can see those.
Oh,
so they'll
yes.
So
saw those on your website and maybe your Facebook page? I don't know.
Yeah, so I was stringing these up for the last couple weeks, so there'll be about 3,000 of them hanging from the ceiling. Oh my gosh. So it'll be pretty extensive. So
okay, so are those cotton? Are you using cotton or what sort of?
I'm using polyester thread, mostly because I can get these really vibrant. I'll show the really vibrant color. It's like electric. So I can get these really insane neon colors with the polyester thread, and then I can also buy them in spools like that, like big ones.
Okay, right. That helps.
Yeah. So I just need a ton of thread. Yeah. Wow. And then the other thing I have on my design table, I'm just going to go grab it.
Okay. I'm going to post up this orange one here that we've posted, that Victoria's got up. In the meantime, it's really nice. Lovely work.
Yeah. So I'm going to do this project for a couple of exhibitions that are coming up. It's called Naked Craft, and we're going to do an exchange between Canadian artists and Scottish artists. So I've been thinking about my work becoming a bit more three-dimensional, and then I've also been thinking about memory and this kind of like leftover. My new project is I'm going to recreate my moving boxes out of thread. So these are kind of my... So
what do you mean when you say you're moving boxes?
Well, when I moved from Philadelphia, or when I moved from Toronto to Philadelphia, I used these like fruit boxes from the corner store to move all my stuff down there. And because I was staying for such a short time, I kept them. So those same boxes moved my stuff from Philadelphia back to Toronto. So I want to recreate those out of thread in these kind of three-dimensional. So I'll make them flat and then fold them into the box form so that they'll kind of be these like tribute to like a mass-produced disposable object, but created out of
powerful
embroidery.
So it looks like someone was even asking that, Diane was asking that question, how do you stitch the small sculptural work? Do you stitch it flat and then form it afterwards?
Yeah, that's generally how I've been doing it. The little cup forms that I showed you, they came out of the orange scribble piece that I can see right now. And what happened is I accidentally pulled one of the scribbles, and it, like with the heat of the iron, and it pulled the piece, and I thought, oh great, I've ruined this. But then if you recreate the mistake over and over again, you can create those little cup forms. So
recreating the mistake over and over again. That's a good statement. I like that.
Yeah.
That is,
good.
Someone's asking, do you have a certain brand of thread that you find better to work with than others?
I like when I'm doing like more fine embroidery, I like the Solvay rayon. But when I'm doing these really large repetitive processes, I generally use just like really, there's a store in Toronto and I just buy like 20 spools of whatever color I need. So
yeah, that's your palette there.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. I'm guessing we should start wrapping up here. If I see any more questions, last-minute questions in the chat room there, I appreciate everybody joining us in that chat room. I know it's I teach at a school, so I know we do a lot of online chats, and it seems that people are making good use of that today. Yeah. I guess my question, I want to, as I wrap up, how do you see the future of fiber? Where do you see it going?
Well, I think there's like a excitement around fiber right now in the contemporary art world. I've been seeing, like at the Drawing Center in New York, there was a show that involved fiber. And yeah, I think that there's going to be more and more interest in the contemporary art world working with the materials of fiber because there's so much possibility and this kind of malleability, and yeah, I think it's unexplored territory in a lot of ways. So I think that there's going to be lots of interest in that, like within contemporary art.
Yeah, thank you. I think you're one of the futurists leading the way, and it'd be fun to see where your work is headed. I know we'll be following you, and on our website, everybody, make sure you check. You can click on her website. You can follow her on Facebook and follow us on Facebook, and all that social media is what's going to make our this fiber community stay together and be inspired by each other. So thank you, Amanda, for taking so much time. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, oh gosh. Yeah, Victoria, thank you for being in there and clicking the buttons. And everybody, we'll be back. We have, wait, we have one more question. I see a question coming in. This always happens, and it's a good one. Yeah. Where do you see your work in 5 years? Thank you, Lou. That's a good one.
Oh, this is a good question. It's something that I've been thinking about a lot because I just graduated from my MFA with, this really experimental body of work, and then I also have this embroidery work, and right now they kind of feel like at opposition with each other. So I don't know. It's a good question. I mean, I wonder if the work will kind of come together and become like one body of work, or if it will kind of stay separate. But for the embroidery work, I'd really like to see it become a bit more sculptural and to work kind of more in space, to kind of think of the embroideries as sculpture rather than drawing. I think could be a really exciting, like just a different viewpoint for that work. And then for the work from grad school, I'd like to just keep going with that. I'd like it to get bigger. I'd like to work a bit more with drawing. So yeah, I mean, it's like, who knows, but yeah.
Well, wait, there's a couple more questions. Where is your upcoming show in Gatineau?
It's at Space Pierre de Bain. I can send, Cami, I can send you the information for that. But it's a municipal gallery in Gatineau, Quebec.
So if everybody's on Facebook, we can post some of those things, and we'll also post a link back to you'll be able to see this and listen to this again on our Facebook page, on our website. So we'll try to get some of those links about where to find Amanda. Yeah. And so stay tuned. And okay, so this is a wrap. Lots of people are thanking you here in the chat room.
Oh,
that's really
thanks
exciting.
Everyone for coming. It's awesome.
And stay tuned. We've got some amazing artists. If any of you have ideas or suggestions about artists that you'd like us to interview, please send them to us. You can post it on our Facebook page, or or email us. You can email me at, here, I'll type it in there, cammysmith@FiberArtNow.net. Okay, that's my forte. But there, feel free to email me any suggestions or ideas. All right, I'm turning the stop button off, and we'll post this up on our website hopefully within the next 24 hours, but maybe sooner. Stand by. Thank you again.
Bye.